Hey all, it's Matt, your average gamer. Today we're going to be looking at the Convergence mod for Elden Ring. We're going to be going through all the basics in this video and how fun it is to play. First, starting classes are widely different. This adds a ton of variety right away, as many of them appear to be immediately cool looking and give you very different stats to start with. For me, I chose the Starcaller, as a strength and intelligence build sounded like a really fun way to start this adventure. I really enjoyed the character options here, and it certainly took a moment to decide. So far though, as we continue this journey, I ended up happy with the character I chose in the end. By the way, I'm currently using the PC that I got around 3 weeks ago, and it's been great so far. I know a few people have asked. It's running Elden Ring well, and it has been really fun being able to use mods now too. My exact pre-built PC is in the description below. You can see here there's so much variety in the starting classes. It's up to you what to choose. I can't really inform on all of them yet because I've only tried one so far, but the variety we have here is unreal. You have a ton of different ones to choose from, all with cool looks and different stats. It's really fun picking a character. So you can pick what you choose, but there is a wide variety. You can obviously look them up and get some input on them, but for me, I started with the Starcaller one, and the next thing we're going to talk about here is Affinities, which have changed pretty much entirely. Yeah, Affinities basically got an entire overhaul in Convergence Mod, and it ends up adding a ton of variety to the weapons in Elden Ring. We have all the standard stuff here. We have Glint here, which is magic damage and scales with intelligence. We have Dragonkin, which gives you lightning scaling with intelligence and frost damage. Gravity, which is physical intelligence. Flame, which inflicts a new status, immolation. Golden, which is holy damage and scales with faith. Then next up, we have Draconic, which is lightning damage that scales with faith. Bestial, which is faith and physical damage. Then we have Knight, which actually gives you the option to be a faith and intelligence build on any weapon, which is awesome. Lava, which is faith-based fire damage. Next up, we have Frenzy, which can add madness build up to anything, so that's pretty awesome, faith and intelligence. Godslayer, which adds another new status effect in Soulburn, percentage damage, intelligence, and faith. Then we have Frost, which obviously has frost damage, intelligence and arcane for this one. Aberrant, which is blood loss, intelligence, and arcane. Then we have Blood Flame, which is going to be your fire damage and bleed. Then Rotten, which is poison, faith, and arcane. Then Storm, which is faith and intelligence. And then Mystic will be your sleep build-up that you can put on anything as well. I was using Square Off on the straight sword. Yeah, there were some major changes to Affinities, but honestly, so far I like them. It gives a lot of variety. And next thing up here, we're going to talk about Remnants, which are new and can be really useful. Yeah, they're not just actually useful, they're really what you need throughout the game if you're going to do Convergence Mod, and they give you additional talismans and tiers that you wouldn't normally see in the game. So far, I ended up getting one that actually boosts my skills by 15%. That was a tier that's not actually in the game of Elden Ring. And my talismans right from the beginning have been boosting magic and lightning, while I was using two new affinities, Dragonkin and Frost. Yeah, these are pretty much awesome, being able to do this and get different tiers that aren't normally in the game, and then obviously get different talismans as well. Next up here, we're going to talk about armor. There's a big boost for pretty much all the armor in Convergence Mod. All the armor here is going to add stats for you, as right from the get-go I was able to boost my strength and intelligence by several points with the Starcaller set. All armor seems to add some level of points and can help you shape your build in a more convenient way. I feel like this addition, it makes armor feel more necessary and can actually allow you to be stronger based on what set you're using, as opposed to just defense and a couple of special effects like in the normal base game for Elden Ring. Yeah, so we're not dealing with just the mushroom crown or the white mask here. All the armor in the game seems to have some level of effects and raises your points for different stats, so whatever set you have can actually suit your playstyle and your build, as well as giving you some defense too. This is definitely a welcome addition for me, as something I really enjoy. That's what I'm using, by the way, currently. And then as far as new areas, there's a whole bunch of new areas in the game. There's a bunch of mini areas to explore. Deep-Root Depths has been overhauled a bit, with a new area to explore in this one as well, which ends up being pretty neat. This whole area was really well done, and it fits right in with the rest of the map. As I move forward through the area, there were a few new items to pick up as well. Smithing stones have also been changed to make it simpler, needing only 1, 2, then 3 of them for regular weapons and 1 for somber. They also just read smithing stones, large smithing stones, etc., and seem to be a little easier to find as well. Yeah, this ended up being a cool new little area that they threw in, and it would ultimately end up leading to a Dragonkin boss fight that ended up being really exciting. But this little section is just an example of some of what it has to offer in Convergence Mod, where there's a whole bunch of additional areas added in the game. If you're on PC and you're looking for a change up, so far I can tell you, and I'm going to say this at the end of the video as well, I definitely recommend Convergence Mod. These overhauls, they're really nice. Everything flows well together, and so far, close to the end of the game, it's been an absolute blast. As I mentioned, this would eventually lead me to a Dragonkin boss fight, which ended up being really cool. I only added the end of the fight here, as it ended up being a rather lengthy boss fight. His moveset was really cool. It certainly gave me a new challenge in deep root depths that I didn't expect. And this is just another example of how much effort was put into Convergence Mod. The boss fight ended up being really epic. It was in a cool area. I'm going to show around deep root depths a little bit more because there's more to talk about. But yeah, this was really cool. Cool boss fight, neat area, and a solid addition to Elden Ring. The changes actually felt really refreshing for somebody who's played the regular base game for Elden Ring on console for a very long time. At this point, being able to change it up with the Convergence Mod, it ended up being a really refreshing take on the game. You're going to see behind me here, there ends up being 2 flames on this door in Deep Root Depths that would normally bring you to the Dragon Fortisax, and you have to fight 2 different bosses. I had to figure this out in order to open it. It's just an example of another addition that was really cool. And it definitely led to some deaths too, as you're going to see upcoming here, because some of the bosses I just didn't know their movesets or how to fight them, and it ended up being really difficult. Certain areas like this one I chose to just run through. Obviously there's just regular enemies here, but once we get in here, we end up with a tough boss who apparently does a lot of damage. I end up dying here rather quickly, as I was one shot with Frostbite, and I would have to learn his moveset and come back. Some of the new bosses are relatively easy, but some of the new bosses that I've ran into are actually quite difficult. Now this boss ended up not having a lot of HP. I went back and used the jellyfish as my buddy here to help out, and he ended up going down fairly quickly because although he hit hard, he didn't have too much HP, so he's a little bit easy to deal with in the end. But some of the bosses can be a real challenge. The additions definitely, they're no slouch. They can range in difficulty, and they can be really hard. Yeah, they recently added a new boss fight in the Godskin Matriarch, which I haven't challenged yet, and supposedly it's apparently really hard. Can give Melania a run for her money, so I'm looking forward to that boss fight when that time comes. And now you're going to see me go back as I head back towards this area. I actually had to figure this out. One of the flames ends up going out, and the other boss I would have to take on, I'm not going to show it in this video, ended up being the Crucible Knight, the more difficult Crucible Knight in Deep Root Depths that you have to beat to get Celeria's tree, and once that was beaten, I could then access the arena for Fortisax. And if you're wondering how I sound, by the way, my allergies have been terrible this past week. It's been a little bit rough, and I've been having a tooth problem for the second time this year, so recording's been a little bit difficult, but I wanted to show off this mod because it's a ton of fun to play. By the way, once you get to Consecrated Snowfield, you can travel to a bunch of different areas, even areas like Deep Root Depths, which I hadn't been to yet at the time I found this portal. Yeah, it's actually really convenient. It's a nice add. It's another nice feature that I like coming out here and being able to do this. Instead of having to go fight 2 gargoyles and go through that long pathway, once I was at Consecrated Snowfield and found this portal, I was able to go to Deep Root Depths, Ansel River, Sciofor River, wherever I wanted to go from here with ease. Spells have more variety now, and not just because there's more of them, it's because they have a wide variety in terms of how they scale. They scale very different. You can end up getting these items that you can essentially break or whatever, and then they'll give you around anywhere from 3 to 4 spells, and you get a whole bunch of new ones you can see here. It's pretty awesome. And you get those from fighting different bosses, and then you can find them too, and you just break them or whatever, and you get a whole bunch of new spells. They added a whole bunch in terms of spells, weapons, everything to this game. It's really cool. The Convergence mod's been really smooth. And as you can see here, by the way, in Consecrated Snowfield, everything's cleared up. There's no fog, no visibility issues. It's all clear. I actually like this. As much as I like Consecrated Snowfield in general, I do have a little bit of an issue with how hard it is to see. They made it a little bit too difficult to see. The first time I played the game, I got lost a lot. It took me a really long time. I know that's the point after all, but it wasn't like I was finding rare items in between. I was just lost in the fog, but in here, in the Convergence mod, everything's cleared up. After the fire giant, by the way, I found something here. There's new weapons in the game. There's even one here that ends up being a really cool addition to the fire giant boss arena. Weapon scaling, by the way, has completely been overhauled. I believe I mentioned that, though. Many weapons, including old and new, will scale with multiple stats and encourages you to level up your character as much as you can as you go on. And levels work differently too. As you level up, you actually just get a little bit, I think it's less every level, because I believe the way they mapped it out is so that going up to 99 is actually worth more than, say, going up to 60 and then having stuff cap, or 80 in some cases for certain caps, but obviously 60 vigor, as 40 vigor in this is less so far, at least for me. So Farum Azula, which can be entered by the belfries, the 4 belfries, and you can actually get to the main part of Farum from early in the game using that sword key, that special sword key on the, I believe it's the 3rd one to the top. Anywho, as far as Farum Azula, it's been completely overhauled. You actually have to fight, or at least I had to fight, Ancient Dragon Lanciax, who's here in the middle of an awesome dragon battle, and you can see the outside how well it was done. The entrance to Farum Azula was really exciting. Yeah, when I got here, totally didn't expect this. I saw the dragon stuff at the door, and I was like, this is probably going to be a boss fight. I figured maybe it's something small, and then it ends up being Lanciax, and I'm like, this is an epic way to fight him that kind of turns him into somewhat of a requirement. It's an awesome boss battle in a good place. Yeah, you really fit in well there, that's for sure. And as you can see here in the Fire Giant Arena, before we get to the end game, and I haven't finished this part yet, you have to seek Mog, Melania, Fortisax, or Placidusax to move on in this area from the Fire Giant. So that was certainly something else that I didn't expect when I came out here to the Fire Giant. I was like, well, I'm just going to move on to Farum Azula, and found out that I had to go through the 4 belfries to get there, and that, I guess, for the end game Ashen Capital, you're going to have to defeat certain bosses to get there. On to some new boss fights, of which I'll show 2 of the ones I fought so far. The first one is the Guardian I found initially in the mountaintops, although there's several of these specific ones near the tree avatars, which I found out later on. This battle ended up being pretty tough, as this boss has a variant of what seems to be the Golden Order Greatsword, or its Ash at least. It does massive holy damage. Thankfully though, posture damage in general and critical hits seems to be upped in Convergence Mod, so it's nice to take on more difficult bosses, being able to posture break them a little bit easier. I chose to use the Rune's Greatsword a bit because it fit my build, although I plan on using many more builds, weapons, spells, and everything as I go on. This boss wasn't hard to posture break with jump attacks, and as mentioned, big weapons have now an increased critical multiplier, so this Rune's Greatsword will have a 120 multiplier, which is really high for big weapons, and it can go a long way as far as critical hits in Convergence Mod. Yeah, another really cool boss fight here. This was another epic one that I ended up throwing the entire boss fight in. The next one up I ended up really liking too, but so far the new additions as far as bosses go, be prepared. There's a lot of challenges out there. It's going to add a whole bunch of stuff to the game, and they all fit though. They can be beaten, obviously, with reasonable move sets, but it does take a minute to learn them. As you can see, I even get beat up a little bit here. My advice on learning new boss fights is like the same thing in base game for Elden Ring. Really go in there, and if you die a couple times, it's alright. Try to remember the movesets. Remember, there's going to be equal dodge windows pretty much for all of these. They're always going to be forgiving in that manner. Eventually you'll learn them, and then you're going to take them down, no problem. Next up, the Godskin duo has been replaced with an electric dog in, well, an electric battle. The thing is actually fairly tough, and it has a wide array of lightning attacks and a decent amount of HP. I used the summon here, a level 1 jellyfish as a distraction, which is really good in this mod because you can resummon your summons during battle. Yeah, I thought this was a nice little addition, and by the way, during like the regular map and stuff, in most of the map you can use summons too. Now, you can't use like 2 at once or anything like that. You can't summon a whole bunch of things, but when your summon dies, you can just respawn it and then continue the fight. So for somebody who likes to use summons, this could be a huge convenience for you in battle. Quite literally a dogfight, and I started to really like the addition of new bosses. This one was a really fun fight. As we wait for Elden Ring's DLC, Convergence Mod started to grow on me very quickly. This is a well done mod that adds new bosses, weapons, spells, and areas. There's a lot here to look into. If you're into Elden Ring and you're on PC, definitely check this mod out. It's awesome so far. By the way, in 12 hours, and this is on the PC setup I have, but this is also a testament to the mod as well, in 12 hours of play on the alpha test Convergence mod, not a single crash, and other than a few random dips, I was hitting consistently 60 frames per second. Yeah, quite impressive. By the way, if you guys want to see builds for Convergence mod, if this is something that my PC players, I know I got a lot of people on console, don't worry, I'm not going to forget about you guys, but if you want to see a couple builds and whatnot, see how overpowered I can make stuff for Convergence mod, definitely comment below and let me know. I will definitely look into it because so far it's been all fun. This is definitely something that you're going to want to check out. And as this boss fight goes on, by the way, Blade of the Ancients here, it ended up being really exciting. He's got a whole bunch of different lightning moves that are really cool, and he actually can even do AoEs, area of effects and stuff on the ground, a whole bunch of lightning strikes and whatnot. It's a really unique and fun boss. Nice variant on the Lightning Guardian. By the way, if I didn't mention this yet, if you're not subbed to this channel, if you love Elden Ring content, From Software content in general, definitely be sure to sub to this channel. I'm going to be covering a lot of Elden Ring, maybe some Convergence mod stuff, maybe some mod stuff in general, and then obviously Armored Core 6 if that ends up being good when that comes out too. So definitely hit that sub button. Yeah, so this ended up being a battle. By the way, I'm using Ice Crag Arrow, which gives me a decent amount of range and frost build up as well. I have the Jellyfish Shield too, and my whole build is basically focused around magic, although I did try a little bit with the Dragonkin stuff with the lightning damage that scales off intelligence, and the frost build up too that way. By the way, some of the frost stuff, the basic spells, it will actually scale with arcane too, but that gives you staffs that have both arcane scaling and intelligence scaling, and then scale up higher in general, so you're going to get more damage out of everything. But it does mean that sometimes as a mage, you will have to invest in two stats, intelligence and arcane primarily, to get the most out of everything. And then if you want to do the faith intelligence stuff too, that's obviously a lot of fun as well, where you're also going to have two stats, but again, higher scaling stuff, more damage. And you know me, I love the fact that we can get more damage out of the Convergence mod, and that's definitely something that they put a lot of effort into, because a lot of your weapons and stuff are going to scale with multiple stats, and they're going to scale reasonably. You're going to see a lot of weapons with 2 Bs and 2 Cs, and then obviously you put a bunch of points in all those stats, you're going to end up with some really powerful high AR weapons, and some really powerful spells, staffs, and seals too. And that adds even further to the variety. By the way, back at the round table hold, once you beat some of the Remembrance bosses, pretty much all of them, if you want to get to that point, at the point I'm at here, I hadn't beaten them all yet, but you can rebattle the ones that you've already faced. The Remembrances you've already beaten, you can go back, there's this altar at the round table hold, and you can actually rebattle the bosses you faced previously. It's an awesome addition in my opinion. This is a great way if you want to practice your builds, if you want to try different things. I don't know whether or not, because I haven't tried it yet, if you get runes, but it would be a nice way to farm runes as well. But yeah, as far as being able to rebattle the bosses, that's something that I think Elden Ring needs in it. That would be an amazing feature if they added that, something I really like here. Elden Ring is a great game, as From Software usually always makes quality. The Convergence mod is a great mod for a great game, and the Convergence team did a really solid job here. This is a truly fun and welcome addition that adds more to an already big and amazing game. The link for the mod, by the way, I'm going to leave in the description below. You can find it at Nexus Mods. For any PC players that haven't tried this yet, it's a must. Definitely be sure to sub, check out this mod if you're on PC, and as always, thanks for watching.